Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Helen Barr, Director of the Division of Mammography Quality Standards in the Center for Devices and Radiological Health at FDA. We administer the Mammography Quality Standards Act and its implementing regulations. You're about to view a mock inspection scenario, in particular the closeout section in which the inspector discusses the overall inspection with the facility. This presentation is designed for you to help increase your understanding of the new inspection questions related to our Image Quality Initiative, EQIP, Enhancing Image Quality Using the Inspection Program. In recent years, there's been an increase in compliance cases originating from processes that looked at clinical mammographic images, such as the accreditation process and the required random image checks performed by FDA-approved accreditation bodies. To confirm this trend, last year we analyzed MQSA compliance cases and found that almost 50% of the additional mammography reviews and subsequent patient and provider notifications ordered did indeed come from image review processes. This isn't necessarily surprising, as the inspection process, written in the days of film screen mammography, is heavily equipment-oriented. However, the number and types of inspection violations tell us that in today's world, equipment is not usually the issue. The quality of the images themselves is, and the two components of quality mammography that fail most often are patient positioning and compression. We wanted to play a role in improving image quality. Through the inspection program, the FDA and state regulatory partners are in every mammography facility every year. So we decided to enhance the inspection process by adding questions related to the image quality standards in the MQSA regulations, which stress continuous image quality. And although proper positioning and compression are primarily technologist dependent, we wanted to emphasize the responsibilities of interpreting physicians and lead interpreting physicians as to their roles in validating image quality. Remember, the new EQIP inspection questions are based on regulations that have been in effect since 1994. There are no new regulations with which to comply. Please join me now as we take a look at how a portion of the MQSA annual inspection might look under the EQIP initiative.
Hello, I'm Dr. Saba, the lead interpreting physician.
Hi, Jeff Sinzak.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You know Sam, you're a technologist. This is Ms. Monroe, our administrator.
Nice to meet you.
We hope you don't mind that she joined us. We have multiple facilities in our network, and she'd like to get familiar with these new questions.
Not at all. It's important for the lead interpreting physician to be here because some of these inspection questions are geared towards them. As I explained when I scheduled the inspection, we've added some questions that address clinical image quality. First, I'd like to give you an overview of our new clinical image quality initiative, EQIP, which stands for Enhancing Quality Using the Inspection Program. It's focused on continuous clinical image quality. I want to point out that these are not new regulations. They've always been a part of the MQSA, but the inspection questions related to them haven't been a part of the annual inspection until now. Previously, our inspection questions were predominantly focused on equipment, but recent trends from the accrediting bodies and FDA's analysis of compliance data have shown that clinical image quality and not the equipment are generally the cause of mammography issues for facilities. We've developed 3 questions, as well as sub-questions, and added them to the inspection program to help emphasize the significance of continuous clinical image quality. EQIP also highlights the responsibilities of the lead interpreting physician, as well as other interpreting physicians. So here's a document the FDA has developed, which is titled Important Information About the EQIP Initiative. As you can see, it provides a general overview of the initiative, lists the new inspection questions, and references the underlying regulations. The first set of questions addresses having a system in place for corrective action when poor quality images are presented to the facility's interpreting physicians for interpretation. I'm going to read the full question as it appears in the document. The inspector software that I use displays a shortened version of these questions. These questions specifically are: does the facility have procedures for corrective action when clinical images are of poor quality? Sub-question 1 is, do the procedures include a mechanism for providing ongoing IP feedback on image quality to RTs or other designated facility personnel? In sub-question 2, do the procedures require documenting any corrective actions taken and documenting the effectiveness of any corrective actions taken? This first question is aimed at making sure your facility has a process in place for giving feedback on any poor quality images presented for interpretation and for documenting any corrective action taken, such as repeating the image. The goal of this type of review is to produce an individual mammogram that can be interpreted.
We've always had a system in place for the IPs to inform the technologist when a clinical image isn't acceptable, but we never put our procedure in writing or be required to come up with a written procedure for this.
No, as long as you can explain your facility's system, process, procedure, whatever you want to call that, to me, that will be sufficient.
Does every poor quality clinical image require corrective action?
It's up to your facility to determine when and what type of corrective action is necessary. It's also up to you to determine how to document any corrective action taken and the effectiveness of any corrective actions taken.
Who's responsible for determining if images are of poor quality?
The interpreting physicians are responsible for determining if images are of poor quality, and they're also the ones responsible for providing feedback.
Is there a certain time frame in which corrective action has to be taken when the IP determines that images are of poor quality?
No. Again, it's up to the facility to determine the time frame for completing any needed corrective actions.
Are you going to want to see proof that our facility took corrective action or that the corrective action was effective?
No, I won't be looking for any documentation. You just need to explain your process to me.
I'm the administrator for the main hospital as well as 10 off-site facilities. Not all of our facilities follow the same procedures for the interpreting physicians to provide feedback to the technologist the same way. Some email the technologist and their manager, some facilities have a written form that the IP fills out, and some inform the technologist verbally. Do you have specific examples of acceptable mechanisms for the interpreting physician to provide feedback?
No, we leave that up to each facility to determine.
If our facility is ever cited for this, can we send in an explanation of how we've set up our system rather than submit a written procedure?
Yeah, that would be acceptable. Do you have any other questions? The second set of questions deals with whether you have procedures to ensure that clinical images continue to comply with accreditation standards. First, do you have procedures to ensure that clinical images continue to comply with the clinical image quality standards established by the facility's accreditation body? Sub-question 1. Do the procedures include a mechanism for regular reviews of image quality attributes of a sample of mammograms performed by each active RT and a sample of mammograms accepted for interpretation by each active IP? In sub-question 2, is there documentation of such review since the last inspection? So what I'm looking for here is whether you perform regular reviews addressing the image quality attributes of a sample of mammograms performed by each active technologist and a sample of mammograms that are accepted for interpretation by each active interpreting physician. This question isn't designed for daily feedback on individual mammograms, but for the facility as a whole to regularly review the quality of images performed by all of its technologists, as well as the quality of images accepted for interpretation by all of its interpreting physicians. You'll be required to show me documentation that a clinical image quality review was performed, and the review has been performed at least once since the last inspection.
We do repeat analysis. Can we count that as a review?
No, repeat reject rates are not necessarily directly linked to poor quality images presented for interpretation to the interpreting physician. Remember, when the tech is repeating or rejecting an image, it's the technologist determining that it is a poor quality image. Those images aren't presented for interpretation.
Can we consider our feedback review mammograms presented for interpretation as our regular review sample of images?
As I explained, this is different from the daily review process and is designed to look at the facility as a whole. Your facility will first need to determine how many clinical images from each tech and each physician to include in your review. The sample size is left up to each facility. The review of clinical images should address the image quality attributes outlined in the regulations.
So what are the image quality attributes?
Well, the 8 listed in the regulations are positioning, compression, exposure level, contrast, sharpness, noise, artifacts, and exam identification.
Again, we have one main hospital and 10 off-site facilities. Mammograms are performed by multiple technologists and interpreted by a large number of IPs across our network. When evaluating clinical images performed by each tech and each physician, can the review include a sample of clinical images selected from across our entire network?
No, because the MQSA regulates individual facilities and not networks, the review has to be facility-specific and include clinical images performed by each tech and interpreted by each physician at that specific facility. Again, it is up to the facility to decide the sample size of clinical images to be reviewed. Your facility can decide to conduct the clinical image review once a year. However, it may be beneficial for your reviews to be performed on a more frequent basis, such as monthly, quarterly, or semi-annually. This will allow you to address the clinical image quality problems at the earliest possible time. If the reviews are performed periodically throughout the year, there is no need to include images from all techs and physicians in each periodic review. You can choose to split the personnel across the periodic review as long as clinical images from all techs and physicians are reviewed by the time of the next annual MQSA inspection.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
I also work part-time at a facility with only one interpreting physician. Who's responsible for reviewing the images that she accepted?
In that case, the interpreting physician would need to assess his or her own images for quality. The facility may also choose to work with any designated person, organization, or tool to help determine if images are of poor quality and to provide any feedback.
Is the lead interpreting physician responsible for performing reviews of all the interpreting physicians and technologists?
No, it is up to the facility to determine how the reviews are conducted and who reviews the interpreting physicians and technologists' images. Keep in mind that it is ultimately the lead interpreting physician's responsibility to ensure that clinical images continue to comply with the clinical image quality standards established by the facility's accreditation body.
I think we can handle getting the review done by our next inspection, but do we need to put a written procedure in place?
No, you don't. The only requirement is that performance of all clinical image review is documented.
What type of documentation do we have to provide to show that a clinical image review was done?
It's up to the facility to decide how to document the clinical image quality review. Any documentation should be dated and could be things such as a summary report, a signed statement by the lead interpreting physician that a review was performed, clinical image review meeting records, or memos of review results to the techs or interpreting physicians. Do you have any other questions? Okay, the third and final set of questions deal with the lead interpreting physician oversight of quality assurance and quality control records and corrective actions. These questions specifically are: does your facility have a procedure for LIP oversight of QA/QC records and corrective actions? Sub-question 1, does the procedure include requirements for LIP oversight of QA/QC records, including the review of frequency of performance of all required tests? And sub-question 2, does the procedure include requirements for LIP review to determine whether appropriate corrective actions were performed when needed? What I'm looking for here is whether the lead interpreting physician performs oversight of the entire quality assurance and quality control program. This includes reviewing that the technologist has performed the required quality control tests at the required frequencies and reviewed the medical physicist's annual survey and any medical equipment evaluations. It also requires the lead interpreting physician to determine whether any corrective actions taken were appropriate. While the actual performance and details of the QC tests are generally left up to the QC technologist, the lead interpreting physician should understand what tests are required and at what frequencies.
I currently sign off on a yearly basis in front of a QA binder that I performed QA and QC oversight. The document also includes a statement that everything was reviewed, including any corrective actions taken. Do I have to provide any additional documentation to you?
No, that's not necessary. If you are here next year or on the phone during the inspection to answer this set of questions, then you wouldn't need to provide anything else.
Does our facility have to come up with a written procedure that describes the lead interpreting physician's oversight of the QA/QC records?
No, facilities are not required to have a written procedure.
I know when you scheduled your inspection, you requested that Dr. Saba be available here to answer questions. He's the lead interpreting physician for so many facilities, I know he won't be able to make it to each annual MQSA inspection. Can he be reached by phone on the day of the inspection?
Yes, if the lead interpreting physician is able to be reached by phone on the day of the inspection to answer these questions, that would be fine.
I understand my responsibility to oversee the QA/QC records, but with so many facilities, I may not be available in person or over the phone each time there's an MQSA inspection.
I completely understand. If the lead interpreting physician isn't available on the day of the inspection, facilities may provide an attestation which has to be signed by the lead interpreting physician before the inspection. I brought with me a copy of the attestation that the FDA has developed. This can also be found online. I'll walk you through the website when we're finished. Another option is that facilities may provide a written procedure signed by the lead interpreting physician.
I thought you just said facilities aren't required to have a written procedure for this. If you accept a signed written procedure, are you going to evaluate what's in the procedure and issue citations if it's not adequate?
I'll accept the written procedure as evidence that you have a procedure in place. Although I won't review the specifics of the procedure, it should include all the elements covered by the inspection questions related to QA/QC oversight.
Again, I currently sign off on a yearly basis that I performed oversight of the QA/QC records, which includes a statement that everything was reviewed, including any corrective actions taken. Is this sufficient, or do I also have to sign the attestation provided by the FDA?
If you can't be at the inspection either in person or by phone to answer this set of questions, then the attestation needs to be signed by you ahead of time.
Is a lead interpreting physician allowed to designate another person to perform the QA/QC oversight responsibilities?
Yes, although it's not ideal. Although the lead interpreting physician may designate someone to perform the oversight, I want to stress that the lead interpreting physician is ultimately the individual responsible and will be the one attesting in writing or verbally or signing an SOP.
Our facility has been cited in the past for things like our QC being out of limits. One time we were cited because our physicists found an issue with our equipment, but we didn't correct it in time. Do you have a required frequency for the lead interpreting physician to review the QA and QC records?
No. However, the review should happen at appropriate timeframes to ensure that QC tests are performed at the required frequency and any needed corrective action is taken. Are there more questions I can answer for you?
No, thank you. I think you have covered everything adequately.
Great. The EQIP initiative officially began on January 1st, 2017. We're considering this first year to be an educational year for facilities to become familiar with the new questions. Since this is your first inspection after EQIP went into effect, your facility won't be cited for deficiencies related to the new questions. I'll make printed remarks on your post-inspection report for any current deficiencies so you know what you need to correct by your next inspection. Again, no citations will be generated at this inspection. However, citations will be generated on the next inspection reports beginning after January 1st of 2018. Do you guys have any questions? Okay. I now want to give you a frequently asked questions document, which will help you with any additional questions you may have. You can find all the documents I've given you on the MQSA website, as well as some articles explaining the EQIP initiative. I'll now walk you through how to access the documents and articles online. The easiest way to access the information is to just enter FDA MQSA in your search bar. Now click on Mammography Quality Standards Act and Program, FDA. This will take you to the MQSA main page. You can see here under the What's New section, there are some articles, statistics, and adverse event and action reports listed. To get to the EQIP information, here on the left-hand side of the screen, click on Facility Certification and Inspection, and then click on Inspection News. On this screen, you'll find the links to the important information about the EQIP Initiative document, the attestation, the EQIP Insights article, FAQs, and also a video that Dr. Barr, the head of the MQSA program, gave to the National Mammography Quality Assurance Advisory Committee in September of 2016. Now let's go back to the MQSA main page. You've heard me mention the Insights articles a few times. The MQSA program posts articles periodically on various topics. I'd highly recommend that you sign up to receive these articles and other updates on the MQSA program by entering your email under this subscribe section on the main page.
We'd like to thank you for all the information. We'll make sure to evaluate our procedures and put systems in place so we're in full compliance with the EQIP initiative by our next inspection. We'll also make sure we subscribe on the MQSA website to get the updates.
I hope what you just saw enhances your understanding of what inspectors will be looking for with the new EQIP questions. and what they will not be looking for. Hopefully your facility already practices these quality measures. If not, we believe that having to respond to these new inspection questions can help your facility enhance its quality measures and involve the whole mammography team in image quality improvement. Hopefully, there will be less of a need for additional image reviews when facilities apply for accreditation or otherwise undergo an image check. So there is a benefit to your facility and ultimately to your patients. As you saw, there is a lot of flexibility given to your facility in designing measures that best fit your facility's particular situation and need. Your inspector is the first line in answering your EQIP questions. We at FDA headquarters are also available to you through our facility hotline. Thank you for your interest in EQIP and for watching this important video. Remember, quality mammography is everybody's business. In addition, I would like to thank everyone who contributed to the production of this video for their hard work in support of our public health mission.